Let's see how it looks. Hola, looks like we're trying to get this thing going, and I don't know. There we go. Okay, hi guys. Luminostic. Just wanted to kind of touch base. There's good things happening in the world. There are appalling things happening in the world. It's always a mixed bag, I guess. I I've really had enough with the United States. The White House kind of casually announced that they would be working with Facebook to censor information that I can't remember the exact words they used that they found problematic. Um, so when I was a child, uh, I remember Americans, just average, normal Americans. I'm not talking about hippies or anarchists or any kind of rebellious, outside of the box, just average Joe Americans. If they had thought there was going to be government censorship in the United States, they would have lost their fucking minds. Like, it would have been a serious, 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 serious problem. Even for, like, my grandparents. And it really seems to me that after this announcement from the White House, there's not really much of a backlash at all. It's as if there is no meaningful counterculture in the United States. There is no, I mean, even the patriots, I guess, would be people that, I mean, America used to, or at least America is North and South America, so I'm trying to correct myself and say specifically the United States of America. They used to have, patriotism was about rights. It was about freedom of expression and individual liberties and freedom of speech. And, we were taught in school that these things were really, really important. Um, so I guess it just really hit a nerve when I saw this announcement from the White House that they were going to be directly censoring media, the government in the United States. Like, people used to say America is such a great place to live because this stuff doesn't happen. That happens in China. That happens in Russia. That happens in Korea. Government censorship should be an outrage to the American people, and they are just taking it like it's just really bad. Hey man, it's been a long time. I'm sorry to hear that, man. If you want to talk anytime, just send me an email and we can Zoom. I'll try to help. I've been physically going through a rough time too. I don't know whether you've been following it all, but yeah, man, just let me know if I can help with anything. Speaking of helping, I want to thank the people today. We did fail, but it wasn't our fault. Earlier, I asked people to go to Telegram and sign up for this to help me get on the blue list, basically, because if you're able to buy pre-launch prices for a lot of these cryptocurrencies, you will make tens of thousands of X's. And this Nano Doge that is coming up, you guys, if you are able to, I mean, I'm going to get a small army together to try to get on the blue list and do whatever we can, work together, because it's going to be bigger than Mini Doge, which did like 30,000 X in 48 hours or something. I mean, what we need to make a movement is capital, whether we like it or not. And yeah, that's what I realized. What I want to thank you guys for is not only your effort, but also for showing me that I do actually have the ability to mobilize a group of people to get us into something like that. Because, I mean, you guys can bet that if I'm able to get into a blue list and pull some money together, and I make $100,000 in 48 hours, or even $1,000,000, I mean, it's not $1,000, 1,000x. That's realistic. It's totally realistic for this project. And yeah, man, like I said, man, well, I'm definitely down to do the Zoom thing. And so, yeah, I mean, there's just a tremendous amount of potential. So it's August 2nd. Whether I'm in the blue list or not doesn't matter. And I'm still trying to raise as many funds as I can to buy in at launch. The other day we were walking on the street here in the community where we're living, which has been really hard hit by COVID. I didn't really explain this as deeply as I could have the last time I got on, but um, yeah, we could try to mobilize some TikTok people too, but honestly, I don't think that's the kind of community that I mean, you guys are people that I've been communicating with mostly for years now. You know, I mean, the TikTok people, I have 17 or 18 million views, and no one has given me a cent on my Cash App, not one penny. So I don't think it's quite the it's a different thing. I don't know. Yeah, Fernando, we should try to involve some people, but and I think we have enough from this community. The next time there's a whitelist, if I'm better prepared and I realize I can maybe get you guys to help me out, you know, and of course, like I said, I'm willing to do whatever I can to compensate you guys. You know, if I made a bunch of money, I'll even fly all the people that were involved to South America or whatever. You know what I mean? We'll think of something to make it worth your time. Um, so I think this is a really good way to really, you know, get me and this community some fuel, you know, the cryptocurrency. I've struggled to get it together, but you guys, I mean, let's be realistic. I started all this with like $1,000 and no income. You can't day trade, you know, there are all these fees and stuff. Like, it was just naive of me to think that I'm gonna just jump in there with a small amount of money and like blow it up with no experience. And it's also been really frustrating to watch all of the things that I would purchase if I had the money explode over and over and over again. I mean, over the last 90 days, I could have made millions of dollars if I had only like 5 grand. Like, no exaggeration at all. Millions of dollars if I had $5,000 to invest. So that's devastating. You know, that we don't have any income, and I know what to do now. You know, I made some mistakes early on, and we're trying to play catch up. But um, anyways, you guys, I think it's a tremendous way to empower ourselves. And I finally got it figured out. You got to get into pre-sales. You got to get that pre-sale price, and then, you know, some of the people in one of the communities I was in today, 13x in an hour. You know, he bought the pre-sale price, and it was 13x an hour later. So there's a lot of potential with these. You just kind of have to, and you got to watch out. I mean, I had what do you call it, like a influencer deal with Lil Sheba, which is, by the way, you guys, if you're into crypto, I think it's a shit coin. It's got no utility or anything, but it's only a $400,000 market cap right now, so it could easily blow up. And they sent me 75 BNB, $75 worth of BNB to pay me for influencing, to make a promo for them. And so we're thinking we got to flip it, you know, so that we have enough to put $1,000 BNB into this Nano Doge launch on August 2nd. So I bought the most solid project I could find, Cardano Doge, it's a Doge token that pays in Cardano, and it honeypotted, which means that they just freeze it so you can't withdraw your money. So we like had this little bit of progress, and you know, we got scammed for thousands of dollars in BNB a few weeks ago. You guys really be careful out there. You know, I didn't mean to go on this crypto rant, but you know, I know everyone's getting involved with it, and you really do have to be careful. We got scammed. Other people got scammed by a project that had doxed devs, which means they showed their face. In this case, the guy had actually, everyone knows where he works, where he lives. It used to be that if the devs were doxed, you didn't have to worry. You could just spend your money and you were safe. But now that doesn't even mean anything. They were audited, doxed. Everyone knows where the dev works, and they still stole $2 million. So you never know anymore. It's really sad because there's so much potential, but it's nearly impossible to detect the scammers at this point. So yeah, I mean, we got hit hard, man, and we had already been hit so hard, and it was such a miracle to come up a little bit. It was just absolutely devastating. And then today, when the Cardano Doge honey potted, they're saying that they're going to unlock it tomorrow. We'll see. But, you know, the little bit we were able to get ahead may have gotten stolen from us again. So that's just brutal. But what I'm saying about all this is that if we are successful at some point, you know, we were walking through this neighborhood yesterday, and because of COVID, like, there's no money in these communities anyways. It's very much like a scene out of, like, the Middle Ages. Here in Ecuador with the indigenous, there's like a hierarchy, like a social strata kind of thing, almost like India's caste system, where you know, you have like white people almost, or like foreigners would be better. Yeah, it's actually more accurate. They're definitely not all white. All the foreigners are at the top, and then you have rich Ecuadorians, and then you have the mestizos, like the regular, normal class, working class Ecuadorians, and then at the bottom you have the indigenous people. And they are treated really, really badly by the government. They're definitely considered like subhuman almost, at least in the way that they're treated. They have no rights. Their land is just taken away and given to the Chinese mines. The Chinese miners will sometimes come and just drive over their houses. I've heard stories of the women throwing the children out the window of the house because the Chinese mines have shown up and they didn't leave the Shuar communities, and so they're throwing the children out the window as the bulldozers are smashing through their houses. Um, and when COVID hit, they actually just locked the bridge. That's the only way out of here. So there's no food coming in, there's no supplies, there's no medical. You're just locked in the jungle, and there's no way in or out. So except the river, and if the canoe taxis aren't running, or you don't have. I mean, even if they were, if they try to go anywhere, they're going to get arrested. So long story short, we were walking around and we noticed that all of the dogs in this community are starving. They look like skeletal remains that are somehow ambulatory. It's horrific. So it's always been my objective to try to become prosperous ourselves, with the objective of empowering communities like this and other people like us that are you know we're not just living for ourselves. And I'm trying to prove that it's possible to not have that dominator culture mentality and still thrive. And it definitely is. I mean, if you look at the stuff that's going on with the billionaires right now, Bezos going to space in a commercial flight, the big competition between billionaires right now is not to see who can end world hunger first, or to convince people to fund psychedelic therapy until we've eradicated war, or to combat environmental devastation. They're fucking pissing contests to get to fucking Mars. You know what I mean? Like, it couldn't be any more stupid and wasteful. And these people are still like celebrities because of their disgusting, pathetic. Uh, I mean, it's just it's horrendous. And by the way, I know a lot of people, more liberals kind of really worship Elon Musk. Um, and he's kind of viewed as like this eccentric genius that's self-made. That's not true. His father owned a ruby mine. He has used slaves to mine, what do you call it? Child slaves to mine the rare earth minerals that are used in some of his products. Um, I mean, these people are not good. They're not good. And if we could just create just a little bit more homeostasis, it would be possible to distribute wealth in an equitable fashion. I really don't think it's beyond our means. I don't think that we even really would have to make personal sacrifices to the extent that a lot of people believe that we would. Um, I'm all about syncretic spiritual practices, right? But I think that syncretism, I guess is a word, approaches to politics, philosophy. It's not just spiritual syncretism that is the most efficacious route to catalyzing your consciousness and developing yourself. Um, the bits and pieces of different political and economic um, structures, whatever, doctrines. This is what we need to do, and I think that what 2020 has showed me, or it's 2021 now, but the last couple of years since COVID has hit, is that there really is a tremendous, tremendous problem with serious, serious brainwashing. The propaganda has been incredibly obvious, and you know, people are definitely not noticing it. They're not responding to it. Um, they will even become exceptionally angry if you even try to point it out. Um, like I was saying in the beginning of the stream, the White House talking about working directly with Facebook to uh, control information that it deems what was the word they used, problematic. I mean, when I 20, 30, 40 years ago, 30 years ago, 25 years ago, I guess that would have caused instant chaos in the United States. Like the idea of government censorship would have there would have been buildings burning down. Um, you know, there has just been so much that has happened that shines a light on all of this stuff. Look, like the BLM movement, I got canceled, called racist, attacked. My Facebook account was deactivated, and I made it a mission last week to kind of go around and look at like what do African American people say about this right now. And I found George Floyd's brother saying like all lives matter, uh, and um, and TikTok is full of videos of black people saying, BLM has hurt race relations, which is what I was saying that made everyone so mad at me. I was saying, look, the way that this is all being staged and the way that it's coming off is not helping anyone. It's not doing anything to help racism. It's not, making a martyr out of somebody like George Floyd is not helping anyone. Like, it's just a terrible, terrible thing to do. And not surprisingly, in my research on this, it's like the only people that think that BLM is good and that it's helping somehow fight racism are white liberals. Like, black people are speaking out against it. I've seen videos of white liberals in the street screaming at black women that are trying to say, like, here's my Mercedes, I'm not oppressed, Karen, you don't know what you're talking about. And you have these white people screaming at them that they are oppressed. And I mean, things have just gone insane to a degree that is mind numbing. I mean, it's so difficult to watch. And so our response to this as thinking sentient humans, I mean, we are increasingly rare. There are fewer and fewer and fewer. Um, I mean, there are also more and more and more. I guess there are more people waking up. I mean, I don't know. I guess what I'm really saying is that I think that the problem with the people that aren't awake is much more serious than uh, I ever would have dared to imagine. Even a year ago, when I really started to see the degree of selective perception and the brainwashing and the propaganda campaigns. And another thing that's been really revealing is that as the mainstream narrative has changed to reflect what people, that were being labeled conspiracy theorists were saying in the first place, uh, no one seems to be noticing. Like, it's not like we have all the people that were laughing in our faces when we were all of us outside of the box thinkers were saying this stuff. Those people aren't changing their minds, even though the entire narrative has twisted on them. It's remarkable, and I have to admit that it's been humbling to a degree for me, because I did think that I had all the answers to an extent, and that we could just tell them and explain and show them. And it was incredibly naive of me, I guess, but I really wasn't expecting what actually happens. And I know that psychologists have actually described um, what I'm talking about. I read a study a little while ago where they were talking about how when people are confronted with their own cognitive biases and selective perceptions and all this kind of stuff, um, rather than just correcting their thinking, they will respond with a fight or flight response, which is what you see when you show people really obvious misperceptions and that they have, accepted misinformation. Um, they don't just say, "Oh, wow, okay, thank you, that's really helpful." They get angry and they go into denial, and um, it's definitely not. It's more difficult. It's going to be more difficult than I had imagined. Um, and I hate to get all mystical and wooey on us, but I do think that there is a lot to be said for the fact that we can use entrainment and entanglement, and we can fight this on the spiritual plane to a certain extent. I think that it's incredibly difficult to change people's minds, even when they're staring at direct evidence that they're wrong. I mean, um, a good example is, people were saying that the masks, wearing masks all the time, would affect your oxygen levels to an extent that it would, cause you brain. I wouldn't say brain damage. I don't think anyone was ever saying that, but like impair your cognition. And I was even kind of scoffing at that, like, yeah, I don't know if it's really enough to have that kind of an impact. And I just saw that WHO released a statement saying that you should not mask children under 12 unless they're in a place that has extreme levels of COVID, because it will impair their brain function. So, what does that imply? You know? So, I mean, I don't see the tides turning. I don't see people opening their minds, even after, you know, all of the criticism of BLM. African Americans in the United States are the people criticizing BLM. Like, it's not racist white people. It's just true that, they deliberately chose somebody like George Floyd to make a martyr out of in order to incite racial tension. And so when I said that, and everyone said, "Oh, you're hateful and you're racist," and I said, "No, no, no. I'm trying to help." And what they're doing is actually making race relations worse than they've been since 1960s. Look at what has happened since 2020. Race relations are worse than they've been since the 1960s. And it's not because of anything that's happened between the races. It's because of things that have been done by the media and carefully cultivated attitudes to keep people divided. Another thing that's happening again, and this is history repeating itself, because this was happening at the beginning of 2020. There were riots all over the world. The United States hadn't quite started to riot yet. Right around the time the United States started to riot, and it started to look like we were going to have social unrest in the United States, lockdown all over the whole planet. And so, once again, there are riots all over the planet. There's starting to be enough unrest in the United States, and there are suggestions that we're going to be locked down again. They were even looking for new reasons to lock people down. They were talking about having weather lockdowns now. So, um, and when I talk about this stuff, a lot of people have accused me of like spreading fear, but it's not fear, it's awareness. I'm not scared. I'm in the middle of the Amazon rainforest, the middle of nowhere. The New World Order happens, to the worst extent. It, I'm still gonna. They're probably not coming out here to a Quechua community in the middle of nowhere. There's food in the jungle that we can eat. I mean, it's not about being afraid. It's about not being delusional. It's about and really, the irony is that the people that would accuse me of causing fear are just afraid of what I'm saying. And it's actually this sort of like cowardly projection, because really they're cowering from the obvious truth, and hiding from it because of fear. So that's kind of insane. I mean, government censorship in the United States, and no one is saying shit. The United States is supposed to be, the land of the free, and taking so much pride. I mean, that's what all that American patriotism and all that shit is supposed to be about. That they will not tolerate government censorship. They want their free speech. Um, but yeah, I mean, what I was saying is that they're using. You guys have to understand propaganda. People just. I think it's a little bit too sophisticated for most people to really wrap their heads around. Um, but the BLM propaganda, for example, they will use situations that it's difficult to criticize because they appear to be aligned with the moral high ground, even though they are nefarious black ops. That is sophisticated propaganda. And you don't have to take my word for it. You can look at the authors on propaganda over the years. Um, and, I mean, this is historically how it's been done. So, we do have a global awakening. There are states of consciousness that are becoming so common, um, that are becoming the norm almost in certain communities, certain areas, that were reserved for the elite of consciousness only 20 or 30 years ago. There are conversations that are possible between common folks that used to require, Terence McKenna and Timothy Leary and Aldous Huxley sitting down for tea. Um, it's not really exceptional even anymore. There is definitely um, an emergent level of consciousness that is rapidly spreading, and I think it is extremely naive to try to believe that all of this stuff that is happening, all this restriction of freedom, all of this ridiculous, insane shit that we're seeing from the United States government, especially, is not, at least in part, a response to the fact that people are developing a type of consciousness or a state of mind that makes them aware of the fact that they don't need to be ruled and that they can't be ruled or controlled. Also, fear is like the number one asset of the ruling elite. It is absolutely their fundamental instrument of control and manipulation. And people that know that they're part of a unified, eternal consciousness, how are you going to scare them? I mean, I've been meaning to make a video or do a live stream for a while about like the dark side of illumination because, expanding my consciousness has caused me some problems. Uh, I think that one of the things that people have gotten confused is that I don't think that higher states of consciousness, it's not that it's not spiritual to be sexual. It's that if you are able to transcend your human consciousness and animal instincts, sex doesn't make any sense anymore. It doesn't, like, I've been in a place before where I cannot understand why people would want to put their weird looking genitals together because they think that the other person is physically attractive somehow. Like, it's just totally irrational and it makes no sense. And so, these kind of states of mind can sort of like mess with you in that way. And even worse is the dark night of the soul kind of state where, for example, you realize that these antinomies, that these equal and opposite energies are literally creating their opposite. And so that can lead to a sort of like abysmal, nihilistic, like everything is pointless. If I do good, it's going to give rise to evil. So everything you do is totally meaningless and inconsequential. You know, I can't even remember where I was going with that, except that, oh man. Let's see what's going on in the comments. I mean, what do you guys think about all this? I mean, it's a rough road, but it's true that we can, I believe, come to a state of consciousness that negates the necessity for rule. And I think that it doesn't really take much to shine a light on the fact that so much of what people are so invested in as their cultural realities are just paper thin illusory constructs with almost no substantial um, reality to them at all. Uh, the rule of law, for example, that makes people feel so safe, and it's one of those things that makes people absolutely insane. Like, you look at right wingers, right, and they're like, we want smaller government, but don't downsize the military, don't defund the police. Which, of course, the propaganda machines, this is a great example of that propaganda, will act like they mean to just take all the money from the cops so that there are just no cops and it's complete lawlessness. And that's not what anyone was ever saying. You know what I mean? So you can see the propaganda machine. It's just, if you've ever dated somebody that has narcissistic personality disorder, that's exactly what the media outlets in the United States are. They're seriously like your narcissistic personality disorder having girlfriend or something, manipulating you with fear and so yeah. Don't defund the military. Don't defund the police. Uh, uh, what was well, there was a bunch of them like that where you could go through this whole list and say, okay, so then what is left? Like, you guys want to make the government smaller. What fucking part of the government is left after, everything that we suggest? You say that we're insane and that you can't, and they create these states of cognitive dissonance in people because of the fact that once you have established the cognitive dissonance, if that person is confronted with the truth, they will become furious and reject it. So, do you understand what I'm saying? It's not just about feeding people misinformation. They're actually creating these juxtapositions of ideas in people's heads because it ensures absolutely that they will not be receptive to the truth when they're confronted with it. It's a little bit trickier the way that they do it with liberals, but they do it with liberals as well. It's kind of a different thing there. They just push the idea of tolerance um, to the point where it is antagonizing to the right. And it is insane. It is absolutely insane. Look, you guys, I've slept in beds with my transgendered friends. Like, I couldn't be less. You can't get less homophobic than that. You know what I mean? Like, but that doesn't mean that it's not insane that we have an overweight transgendered person in charge of mental health and physical wellness, or whatever that, you know what I mean, that situation. They're definitely taking it too far on purpose to antagonize the different sides of all of these arguments. I don't think, I didn't really draw that BLM thing earlier to a conclusion. And I think one of the strongest points to be aware of there is that there actually were totally innocent, harmless, non-criminal, like, I mean, I can't remember this kid's name, but there was an autistic black kid. Sure, man, absolutely. I'm down to do anything I can. What was I saying though? Okay, totally innocent. Like, if you were gonna make a martyr of someone to create a movement, it would have been this kid, and there were others. I really do believe that they picked George Floyd because he was such a piece of shit, not because it was actually. I mean, it's just such a bad idea to make a martyr of that guy if you're trying to improve race relations. That's not what they were trying to do. Yeah, man, for sure, dude. Of course. Coming here would be awesome too, you guys. By the way, we do have a couple of rooms here. If anybody wants to come to South America while you still can, while you still have freedom of movement, And by the way, hit the like button, share, subscribe, and support us on Patreon. There's also a Zelle and PayPal address. I'm not gonna lie, we're definitely struggling down here. COVID has shut everything down still, so it's difficult for us, um, unfortunately. And we want to do good things, man. Like I was talking about feeding the dogs here. I'm not kidding about this stuff, man. It kills me that we have billionaires that are like, tax. No, I didn't say that earlier. Taxpayers are paying for Bezos' space flight. This guy is the richest man in the world, and they're using taxpayer money to pay for his stupid shit. I mean, it's the most. We can't put up with this anymore, man. If you're complacent, you're complicit. If you're complacent, you're complicit. That needs to be like we need to make that phrase viral. If you're complacent, you're complicit. If you're complacent, you're complicit. Period, man. Look, war is wrong. Period. 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 Like celebrating soldiers as heroes is wrong. It's fucking wrong. Okay? You're not a hero because you took money for college to go kill people without asking questions about why you're killing them. It's not good. We're indoctrinated to that's another really great example that I can offer in terms of taking what appears to be the high ground to indoctrinate people to some evil position. Military service. If you are in your homeland and someone attacks you, you can shoot them in the head. If you come here to my house right now, I will kill you if you try to hurt me or my family. I'll kill you. Like, I really will. I do think I'm enlightened. I am a pacifist. You know what I mean? And by the way, I don't mean like Buddha's supreme enlightenment. I think enlightenment is a gradient. There are gradients. There's levels and levels and infinite levels of consciousness. I'm just saying that, if someone tries to hurt you, it's not wrong to just kill them. It's fine. I'll help you. You know what I mean? I won't enjoy it, but I won't feel bad about it either. If someone is really that evil, you just kill them. But you don't go overseas and just kill everybody because somebody gave you a paycheck. That's called being a murderer. That's being a hitman, And the really sad thing about it is that there is only one reason that wars are fought anymore. And it is to generate money for the military-industrial complex. That is it. That is all. There's nothing else to it. It's got nothing to do with. Okay, let's look at it this way. People in the United States they really believe that the United States goes around and polices the world and looks for all the evil bad guys and kills them all. If that was the case, why aren't we going after countries that have child slaves and starting wars with them? Why is it only people that have oil? You know what I mean? Like, it's completely stupid to believe that the United States just goes to war with people that are doing bad things and hurting people. You know what I mean? Like, clearly, that's not the point. Do I like any modern day philosopher, psychologist, or anything of the sort? Well, kind of. I mean, it's frustrating for me to see, I talk about this maybe too much, but like Russell Brand, all of his followers think that he's like blazing a trail of like new ideas, and I did forget that he was already famous. I was noticing that he was saying a lot of the same stuff that I said that lost me all my following and all the Facebook, everybody unfriending me and stuff. And I'm like, hey, everyone loves him for saying this stuff. I said the exact same thing and everyone got mad at me. But then yesterday it occurred to me that, well, he's been famous for a long time. So when you're famous and you say things people don't like, they'll just change their mind. If you're not famous and you say it, you're just going to hate. So I feel a little bit better. I'm taking it less personally that Russell Brand can say stuff that I can't. But no, I don't really, I haven't really seen anyone that I like fully agree with. Timothy Leary, his best work, I like all of that. Terrence McKenna, is entertaining and interesting, But at the end of the day, he lied and deceived people that trusted him. Um, and I think that that's really glossed over a lot. He was like my absolute hero when I was a kid. I realized that he was actually the first person I ever exchanged emails with, the first person I ever sent an email to, and the first person I ever received an email from was Terrence McKenna in like 1996 or 97 or something. Um, and I think there is some value in the stuff but it's really just mostly a bunch of conjecture and even a lot of intentional bullshit. Like he knew that he was, for example, making up the mathematics to support his novelty theory. He was consciously just lying to make himself famous, and I think that's a real problem. And also, Dennis has his brother has criticized him a lot because he didn't take psychedelics anymore while he was out promoting them so heavily. And honestly, you could say the same thing about me. I don't. It's been a year since I drank ayahuasca. I think I don't ever really take psych, and I need to. I know I really need to. Oh well, I mean, I've noticed that like if I start talking about how propaganda is a real thing and that we need to like pay attention, look for signs of it and stuff, I can see how many people are watching. Without fail, the number drops by 2/3. But he puts those numbers out or that kind of a message out, and people are um, and also BLM. He's criticized that and. Talking about how there are really not two parties in the United States. It's really one party, and criticizing Biden and Harris, man. I mean, you guys wouldn't believe like how many patron supporters I lost every single time I would talk about Joe Biden or Kamala Harris. And bear in mind that I think Donald Trump and the right wing sucks donkey balls in hell for all of eternity, hopefully. Um, but if I said anything true about these people, um, I would lose supporters like in droves, man. Um, and I really don't think that. And by the way, you guys, herd conformity, the pressure to conform with the herd is extraordinary. I mean, you would think that anyone that is watching my channel would be watching it because they are nonconformists, because they are challenging the status quo, because they're trying to break out of liberal, conservative, Republican, Democrat kind of in the box thinking. And I have people that have been like year, 2 year supporters with substantial Patreon contributions canceling it because I criticize Biden or Harris, really. And I think that when you have someone as evil as Kamala Harris in the White House, everyone needs to be talking about that. That should not be okay with anyone alive anywhere. And the fact that I literally had like deadhead friends, people that started eating LSD with their parents when they were 14 years old, that should be able to see through all of this kind of shit. Um, Literally posting on Facebook, I know that Kamala Harris is a piece of shit, but I still set my little girl in front of the television and told her, look at this amazing moment. This black woman is because I got demonetized, Mike, or sorry, Shaman Shed. This black woman is the vice president and so amazing. It doesn't matter if she's a green marshmallow and she's vice president. Like, she is horrendously evil. She's been basically a slave owner in the modern era, supporting slavery for real. This is not a conspiracy. This is not hyperbole. It's documented. She has been called evil and horrendous and monstrous and all of the worst things you can think of by judges in courtrooms on record over like a dozen times or something. I mean, this woman has kept people in prison because they were working for the state, doing slave labor basically past their release dates. She kept an innocent man in prison for 18 years that she knew was innocent just to save a little bit of face. And you're putting your children in front of the television and telling them to look up to this woman. Like, that is how Nazi Germany happened. No shit, I'm not exaggerating. That's not, it's that's literally how Nazi Germany happened. And I mean, I don't see how anyone could look at Biden's record either and not be horrified that he is anywhere near any position of power anywhere. That guy shouldn't be in charge of a Boy Scout troop, much less he's not really in charge. That's another crazy thing. Why do people still believe that presidents are in charge? Like, how could anyone be so naive to not realize that these guys are handed scripts? This dude doesn't answer a question without reading it off of a note card. This is supposed to be a leader. Other people don't tell leaders what to say. Leaders think of their answers for themselves, right? You don't have a script writer for a leader. The leader writes his scripts. Like, this is happening in front of everyone's eyes, and people are still denying it. It's almost. Uh, it felt absurd watching. I was watching some right wing show the other day, and just listening to them talk about how it was such a tragedy that Biden's leading the free world. It's like, this motherfucker's not leading anything. Somebody's telling him what to think, what to say, when to shit. You know what I mean? Like, it's stupid. He's not. He's not in charge of anything. Nothing. He is bought and sold. He's been bought and sold his entire career. He is one of the most completely. Look, we had Andrew Yang. We had the woman that called Harris and Biden both out on national television. Everything I said about Harris, she said at a Democratic debate. What was her name? She's Hawaiian. She's an indigenous woman. Like, we could have had those two if they were really trying to look for, like, real leadership, intelligent people that could move the human race forward. Those people are available. They're falling all over themselves to get into these positions. And instead, they clearly chose the two biggest pieces of shit in the entire United States government to put in the White House because they will do what they're told. It couldn't be more obvious, And the degree of, like, hatred and canceling that I got for saying as much, I mean, damn, So yeah, Shaman Shed. By the way, you guys, the only way to contribute is to go to the PayPal or Zelle, or there's a cryptocurrency address. We really appreciate that because we're trying to get D&D together for this launch at the end of the year, so we can feed the starving dogs in our neighborhood. And also, I'm in an amazing position here, and I have to wrap this up because we're using all of our data too. That's another thing. We're on data, so if you guys want us to be able to do these live streams, we need support because it's like $80 for every 60 gigabytes or something, and we burn through it so fast because we have charts up all the time, all day. We have to. Jordan Peterson is great sometimes, but he is a tragedy other times. It's baffling to me that someone can have such a sophisticated, elevated level of consciousness and intellect and still be a flaming fucking moron half the time. Some of the things that he says are absolutely appalling. I think part of the problem is that he is just from an older generation and he has not succeeded in dissolving the matrix the matrix manacles in his mind sufficiently to really be free of it, because he still it lives inside of the matrix box to a degree that is confusing to me because of some of the things he says. So sometimes I like Jordan Peterson, and other times I just cannot believe that he's so awful. It just depends on what he's talking about, I guess. Yeah, they really are trying to vaccinate the whole world. And I mean, you guys, the whole conspiracy theory, New World Order thing would be a lot easier to dismiss if it wasn't for the fact that I first heard about everything that's happening in the 1980s when I was a little kid. I mean, they were talking about scanning, getting a microchip that we would scan that would have all of your data in it, that we would be injected with these microchips. I mean, it was all stuff that was more or less inconceivable at the time that this rumor started going around. So it is kind of like, if the weatherman accurately predicts the weather to an extreme degree of precision, what is BS? you don't say I don't believe in the weatherman or I don't believe what the weatherman says. You know that gives you credibility. So when conspiracy theorists are consistently predicting the behavior of a system, that means they know the system somehow. So I think as time passes, it's just more and more difficult to dismiss all of that kind of stuff. Um, it's completely absurd. I mean, I got laughed. People laughed in my face and called me an idiot when I said that COVID came from a laboratory, right? And I literally saw Jon Stewart on this what is he, the Comedy Channel the other day, talking about how like laughing, like of course we always knew it came from a laboratory. It was so obvious. How could anyone possibly have ever denied it? Ha 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 ha. I remember that motherfucker saying that we were idiots if we thought it came from a laboratory because the scientists said we were idiots if we thought that. You know what I mean? And then he is actually, oh my God, I actually just saw, I think it was Nietzsche or somebody that was describing, it was one of those great philosophers, or it could have been Jung, maybe a psychologist, I don't remember, but he was saying at first, they laugh at you, and then, by the time the process is done, they're laughing like it was always obvious, whatever you were persecuted for saying, like by the time the circle is complete. Um, it's just amazing, and he's literally acting like, oh yeah, it was always so obvious. How could anyone have ever thought otherwise? Like, man, you were on TV telling people they were stupid and making jokes about people that believe it. Like, what does that mean? Does he seriously not remember having said all that stuff? Are these people really puppets to that extent? Because either way, it's pretty scary, you know? And so at this point, like, we do have records of all this. So, yeah, I mean, I like all the great philosophers. Although it's funny that you asked that because there's this book here on being and nothingness, and I found it upstairs the day after I had done this live stream on the Book of Lies, um, where I was talking about being and nothingness. And so I go upstairs, and the only book that I would read on the shelves was this being and nothingness. I've never known how to say his name. Sartre, is it or what? But honestly, reading it, I mean, I'm not trying to be pompous or condescending, but I've noticed this about all the old school philosophers. I think we have evolved to the point where it's not really impressive anymore. Um, I mean, when I read it, it just seems really pedestrian and simple and basic. Like, it's like, isn't this shit just obvious to like any thinking person by the time they're like 12? Uh, so I mean, maybe I'm a super genius, or maybe I'm just arrogant or something, but it's just not impressive to me. I don't understand like how people could celebrate the intellects like this. That I mean, unless maybe this just isn't representative of his genius or something. But I've always felt that way about the great philosophers. It just seems like we were just so far beyond. I mean, these questions that they were asking and just so celebrated for answering, it just seems absurd now to me. I mean, I find Timothy Leary to be like infinitely more advanced than any of those like great philosophers from the past. At his best, anyways. There were times when he was a rambling idiot, just like me. But when he was at his best, I think he was far beyond these guys. They were only scratching the surface of what the psychedelic minds would eventually uncover and communicate much more concisely and with much greater fluidity than the, I mean this is like this guy is taking like 900 pages to basically say one thing, like to present one idea. It's like it's just so overwrought. I don't know. Yeah, Jung is really interesting to me, and Jung is one of the reasons why I feel like there's something in our intuition, there's something in our being. It's like this idea that Aleister Crowley had of the true will, where we have this like basic essence in us. Um, because like Jung, I always knew when I was younger that there was something really important that I needed to see in Jung's work, but I never pursued it or looked into it until after the events that created the relevancy occurred. So I had no idea that Jung had coined the term synchronicity. And I had a bunch of experiences that were just extraordinarily improbable and synchronistic. And and they happened. There was a very high uh, 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 incident density during this period, um, and they were all there was conceptual continuity, a thread that ran between all of these synchronicities, which made them even more absurdly improbable. And in fact, that theme of improbable, meaningful coincidences continues to this day. These things with the same theme still occur with a great regularity. Um, and so Jung eventually, I realized, after I had all these synchronistic experiences, had coined the term synchronicity, and that's happened to me a number of times where it's like my ears will perk up, and I know that something is really, really significant, and that it is a piece of my personal puzzle, but I won't know why. And then the incidents, the real world incidents that occur that create the relevancy happen before I look into it and discover that this resonance had some kind of substantive reality to it. Uh, and yeah, you absolutely should look into Crowley. I did a if you look back through my videos, you'll find where I was talking about the Book of Lies and analyzing it and looking at Crowley's commentary. I'm doing the Book of Lies. I think tomorrow. I'm gonna finish it. Going through I'm not doing the entire book, but I'm going through the analysis of my analysis and commentary. Uh, Crowley was absolutely amazing, and I think that he said some unfortunate things, and to some extent, his bad reputation was earned. But I think that it wasn't anywhere near the level of evil and depravity that a lot of people claim. There's absolutely no hard evidence to support any of it, um, except that he made a couple of comments that were pretty disturbing. Um, but I understand why, okay? And I'll actually elucidate on that because it was like his sense of humor. I do this, and people take me seriously sometimes, and then I realize that people on the internet don't know me personally, and I'm under socialized. But anyways, Crowley said or wrote in the book Magic and Theory and Practice that the best sacrifice is a male child of perfect innocence. And people freaked out, rightfully so, by the sound of it, but it's because they didn't get the joke. It's not. It also says in that book that there's no reason to engage in blood sacrifice and only an idiot would do that, because any energy can be transmuted into any other energy, and because there's infinite energy in the universe, the magician always has an infinite access to whatever energy he may need for whatever purpose. So there's no reason to sacrifice anything to get the energy out of it, because you can just transmute other forms of energy. And if you're not capable of transmuting energy, there's no reason for you to be sacrificing anything, because you're not competent to transmute the energy from the thing you're sacrificing. It's just not necessary. It's kind of like Tesla's knowledge of how there was a infinite amount of energy that we could draw from the Earth's, field, to power things, the Tesla coil or whatever. I'm getting a little tired, so my brain's getting slow. But you understand what I'm saying. What he was actually doing is taking a jab at Christ and the New Testament. Because that way, when people said, "Oh, you evil bastard, how dare you suggest that an innocent male child is the perfect sacrifice," he would say, "Oh, okay, so you worship a God that does evil shit." That was the point of that line. But unfortunately, the world is full of idiots, and I'm sure there are moron Satanists that have sacrificed people because of that line in that book. So when I say he wrote regrettable things, I only mean that it's regrettable because there are people that are too goddamn stupid to put things in perspective. It was not Crowley's intention. It was a very, very witty, brilliant joke that unfortunately has probably caused some pretty bad consequences. So, yeah, honestly, I think of all of the minds that I've ever encountered, Crowley is the greatest, the highest genius that I have ever seen anywhere. Um, his ability to articulate the ineffable is unparalleled. And it's crazy because he also had the most accurate prophetical musings of any of these people. Um, And in the Book of the Law, it says your success will be your proof. And I would have to say that if you understand what Crowley was saying and really look at the message, time has proven him a success. Uh, the law of Thelema, as he conceptualized it, is becoming the standard for personal conduct. I think people are increasingly aware that the way to be happy is to figure out what your true will is and to commit every breath, every thought, every deed to the realization of that will, to always act in accordance with your essential being. And this will also create the closest we can ever hope to get to a utopian society, because if people are acting in homeostasis with their essential being, they'll also be in harmony with each other. And so this is really the basic revelation that is required of people that would set us on a path to having a planet where we have resolved the crisis of purpose that I think is driving people insane. This empty, materialist, purposeless culture, and even religion that is kind of developed around it, of meaninglessness, is what is, is why the ocean's testing positive for Xanax and people are shooting up schools and crowds and stuff. And I mean, Crowley was right. He did have the answer. And he gave a lot of details. He said this thing told him, take wine and strange drugs and know me thereof. And here we are with people smoking DMT, communicating with hyperdimensional entities. He said that people would become more bisexual and that this would become normal. And that at the same time that all that was happening, fascism and communism and all of these abortive births of the new eon would be hemming us in all around the globe. It's just astonishing. So what I was saying, Adolescent Wandering, is that you should check out, I already made 2 or 3 of these live streams about the Book of Lies and the Book of Law. You can check those out. I think I did a pretty good job. And then also in my Patreon, I'm doing the other commentaries, because you got alternative commentaries for the Book of Law. So eventually we'll probably go through a lot more of it too, the Book of Thoth and the Wisdom of Folly. So, I mean, that's it, guys. I'm just totally out of energy, and I probably burned up way more data than I have any right to. So thank you so much for spending this time with me. Please do hit the like button, share, subscribe, support us on Patreon, or you can send money to the Zelle or the PayPal. We really appreciate it. The one more thing though. Another thing I'm trying to raise money for is the Borani tribe, which has only been contacted in 1974. They first saw toilets in stores and restaurants less than 15 years ago. Their language is the 3rd least studied in the world. I am planning to approach them and try to see if I can trade English lessons for Warani lessons. But it's going to cost, I'm going to have to rent a canoe to get to the community every single time I go and stuff. So we're just, really trying to raise some funds so that we can make some meaningful stuff happen, feed the dogs here. And it's not a reservation, but, that's what we call it in the United States, the Quechua community. So thank you guys so much for spending this time with me. And remember, if you're complacent, you're complicit, man. The fact that the White House has declared that they're going to work with Facebook to eradicate problematic information from Facebook should be the straw that breaks the camel's back. It is time for revolution by any means. And, people just need to fucking nut up and quit being such a bunch of goddamn cowards, man. They remain so complacent and so comfortable that they would rather just let the world go to shit than risk fucking losing their Xanax prescription and their fucking seat on the couch or whatever. I mean, I don't even understand what it is that... I mean, it's like the culture is so vapid and pointless and empty and toxic that it doesn't really justify its continued existence, which may explain why it's destroying itself. It knows that it's so venal that it demands to be destroyed so completely that it's beyond the human ability to recall its existence. Right on, man. I appreciate all you guys. We really do. trying to shine some light, man. You know, I mean, I know a lot of this sounds kind of negative, and that's not how I intend it. But we have to look the bull square in the eyes, grab it by the horns, kick it in the fucking nuts. You know what I mean? And I am trying to, despite my health problems and the struggles that we're going through financially and everything, really pull myself together and 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 make the greatest contribution that I possibly can. Because if we don't do something drastic and very very rapidly and act with concision and determination and focus, we're fucking doomed, man. It's not a joke. And so we have the tools, we have the potential, but we have to, we really need to come to arms in order and, and really take things to the next level. So thank you guys so much, and we'll see you next time.